They celebrate him now. They call him inspiring. They call him lucky. They call him successful. But they weren't there the night he almost quit. 12 failures. Not one, not two, 12. 12 times he believed it would work. 12 times he told himself, this is the one. And 12 times, the world said no. Rejection emails, unanswered calls, doors closed in his face. Each, unfortunately, felt like a verdict. Each, we regret to inform you, felt personal. And on that night, sitting alone in the cold, rain mixing with tears he refused to admit were falling, he felt it. That dangerous thought, maybe they're right. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe his dreams were too big for someone like him. Maybe success belonged to other people. People with connections, people with money, people with luck. Not him. His phone buzzed again. Another rejection. He didn't even open it this time. He just stared into the darkness, wondering how many more failures a man can survive before he stops believing in himself. And right there, in the silence between thunder and doubt, he stood at a crossroads. Quit and protect his pride, or try one more time and risk breaking completely. What he didn't know was that this pain, this humiliation, this crushing, unbearable doubt was forging the man the world would one day admire. That night in the rain didn't break him, but it changed him. The next morning, the storm was gone, but the doubt remained. He folded the rejection letter carefully this time, not in anger, not in frustration, but in silence, because something inside him felt different. Not stronger, not confident, just tired of losing. The days that followed were heavy. Interviews that started with smiles and ended with polite handshakes. Emails that began with hope and ended with, "We've decided to move forward with another candidate." Again, and again, and again. Each rejection didn't just close a door. It whispered a question. Why do you keep trying? Friends stopped asking about his progress. Family changed the subject at gatherings. The encouragement slowly turned into advice. Maybe choose something safer. Maybe lower your expectations. Maybe this just isn't for you. And for a moment, he almost believed them. Because failure isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It seeps in quietly. It makes you question your reflection. It makes you shrink your dreams to fit other people's comfort. But here's what they didn't see. Every rejection taught him something. How to speak better, how to prepare deeper, how to listen more carefully. Pain was shaping him. Disappointment was refining him. And even though he didn't know it yet, every no was building the man who would one day hear yes. The rejections didn't stop, but something else didn't stop either. His desire to prove, not to them, but to himself, that he was capable of more. If no one would open a door for him, he would build his own. So he took the little savings he had left. Every note, every coin. Money meant for comfort, for security, for emergencies. And he bet it on himself. A small space, bare walls, second-hand furniture, a borrowed desk. It wasn't impressive, it wasn't glamorous, but it was his. For the first time in a long time, hope didn't come from an email. It came from action. He worked early mornings, late nights, sometimes both in the same day. He designed, he planned, he marketed, he believed. And for a moment, it felt different. A few customers walked in, a few sales came through. Small wins, but enough to make his heart beat faster. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the breakthrough. But success doesn't arrive just because you want it. Foot traffic slowed, bills stacked up, expenses grew louder than income. The excitement faded into pressure. And one night, sitting alone in that tiny office, lights flickering, calculator in his hand, he realized something terrifying. This dream, the one he built with courage, was slipping through his fingers. Again. And as he stared at the numbers, A familiar thought returned. How many times can a man start over before he runs out of strength? The numbers didn't lie. He had stretched every dollar, cut every cost, worked every hour he could physically endure. But effort wasn't enough. The shop that once felt like hope now felt like pressure. Bills stacked higher than sales, rent overdue, suppliers calling, messages he stopped opening. He told himself it was temporary, that every business struggles at first, that breakthrough was just one good month away. But deep down, he knew he was running out of time. So he did the one thing he promised himself he wouldn't do. He asked for help. Sitting across from a friend, voice lower than usual, eyes avoiding contact. "I just need a little support," he said. "One more chance." Borrowed money feels heavier than earned money. It carries expectation, it carries pride, it carries fear. He walked out that day with cash in his hand and pressure on his shoulders. This had to work now. It wasn't just his dream at risk anymore. For a few weeks, he pushed harder than ever. More ads, more calls, more effort. Sleep became optional. Peace became distant. And then, sales dropped again. The borrowed money disappeared faster than the first. The shop grew quieter, the air heavier, until one night, he sat alone on the cold floor of that tiny space, lights off, back against the wall. No customers, no noise, no excuses left, just him. And the terrifying realization that he had failed again. And this time, it felt final. Failure is painful, but failure with an audience is heavier. When the shop finally closed its doors, it wasn't just the silence that hurt, it was the questions. What happened? I thought you said this one would work. Maybe business just isn't your thing. Some said it gently, some said it bluntly, but they all meant the same thing. Stop trying. Family gatherings became uncomfortable. Conversations shifted when he walked into the room. Friends stopped asking about the business, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't believe anymore. And belief is contagious. When others lose it, you start to lose it too. He smiled when people gave advice, nodded when they suggested safer options, pretended their words didn't sink in. But at night, their voices echoed louder than his own. Be realistic. Know your limits. Not everyone is meant to succeed big. And slowly, a new fear began to grow. Not the fear of failing again, but the fear of looking foolish for trying again. Because failing once is understandable. Failing twice is unfortunate. But failing 12 times? That becomes a label, and he could feel it forming. The unsuccessful one. The dreamer. The one who never quite makes it. He started to question everything. His abilities, his decisions, even his ambition. Maybe they were right. Maybe this dream didn't fit someone like him. Maybe he had mistaken stubbornness for faith. And for the first time, quitting didn't feel weak. It felt reasonable. But deep inside, buried beneath embarrassment and doubt, something still refused to die. A quiet voice, small, faint, but alive. And that voice was about to change everything. The noise didn't stop overnight. The doubts were still there, the opinions, the memories of failure. But something shifted. Not outside, inside. One morning he woke up, and instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" he asked a different question. "What is this trying to teach me?" And that question changed everything. For the first time, he stopped seeing himself as cursed, stopped seeing failure as proof that he wasn't enough. Instead, he began to see patterns, mistakes he had rushed past, decisions made from emotion instead of strategy, moments where pride had been louder than preparation. Failure wasn't random, it was feedback. So he did something he had never done before. He stopped chasing opportunity and started studying it. Days were no longer spent proving people wrong. They were spent learning, reading, researching, watching, listening. He analyzed why the shop failed, why customers didn't stay, why expenses outgrew income. And slowly, the embarrassment turned into education. The pain turned into perspective. The rejection turned into refinement. For the first time, he wasn't trying harder, he was trying smarter. And deep within him, that quiet voice from the darkness grew stronger. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. You're not done. And this time, he believed it. This time, he didn't rush. There was no dramatic announcement, no loud promises, no desperate leap of faith, just quiet preparation. The 13th attempt didn't begin with excitement. It began with discipline. He reviewed every mistake from before, adjusted every weak point, planned for risks instead of ignoring them. Where he once moved fast, he now moved carefully. Where he once guessed, he now calculated. And when he finally opened his doors again, it felt different. Not bigger, not flashier, stronger. The first customer walked in. He listened more than he spoke. He asked questions he never asked before. He paid attention to what people actually needed. One sale came, then another. Not a flood, not overnight success, but steady progress. And this time, when challenges appeared, because they always do, he didn't panic. He adapted. Marketing strategies were refined. Expenses were controlled. Feedback was welcomed, not feared. He wasn't trying to prove the world wrong anymore. He was building something right. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, the numbers began to change. Not dramatically, but consistently. For the first time, growth wasn't accidental, it was intentional. And as he locked the shop one evening, tired but proud, he realized something powerful. This wasn't luck. This was the reward of a man who refused to quit and finally learned how to win. Now, they see the success, the busy shop, the steady customers, the confident handshake. They see the numbers growing, the expansion plans, the respect in people's voices when they say his name. But they didn't see the 12 failures. They didn't see the nights he questioned everything, the rejection emails, the empty store, the silence. They didn't see the 13th attempt begin quietly. No applause, no investors lining up, no viral moment. Just discipline, just correction, just growth that no one clapped for. Now the same people who once doubted call him lucky. Lucky? Luck doesn't stay up rewriting strategy at 2 a.m. Luck doesn't study its own mistakes. Luck doesn't swallow pride and start again. Carefully. This wasn't luck. This was a man who stopped chasing quick wins and started building foundations. The shop expanded. A second location opened. Employees were hired. Systems were built. And for the first time, he wasn't surviving. He was leading. One evening, standing in his now larger store, watching his team work confidently, he smiled. Not because he made it, but because he earned it. Every failure had taught him something success never could. And now when people ask him, "How did you do it?" he doesn't talk about profit. He talks about persistence. He doesn't talk about talent. He talks about endurance. Because the truth is, the victory you see today was built on nights no one was watching. And this time, he didn't just win. He became the man who could never be defeated again. And here's the truth. He was never special. He wasn't the smartest in the room. He didn't have connections. He didn't start with advantages. What he had was endurance. The kind of endurance you only discover when quitting would be easier. Maybe you're on your first attempt. Maybe your fifth. Maybe you're sitting in what feels like your 12th failure right now, and it hurts. The silence hurts. The doubt hurts. Watching others succeed while you restart hurts. But listen carefully. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the tuition. Every mistake you survive is building a version of you that cannot be shaken. The world celebrates outcomes, but it transforms people in the process. And the person you are becoming through the pressure, through the rejection, through the nights no one understands, that person is dangerous. Not because they never fail, but because they don't quit. You don't need applause to keep going. You don't need permission to try again. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need one thing: decision. Decision to study your mistakes. Decision to adjust your strategy. Decision to rise differently this time. Because the 13th attempt is not about luck. It's about growth. And one day, people will see your success. They'll see the results. They'll see the confidence. They'll see the victory. But they will never fully understand what it cost you to become that person. And that's okay. This isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were stronger than your worst moment. So if you're tired, rest. If you're discouraged, learn. If you're afraid, move anyway. Because the only attempt that truly fails is the one you never make again. Your story isn't over. This might just be your preparation for attempt 13. Now, what are you going to do next?